Good morning and welcome to today's hearing on Coast Guard's leadership on Arctic safety, security, and environmental responsibility. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that today's hearing will be both Chairman DeFazio's and Ranking Member Gibbs' last hearings as members of Congress. Both have decided to retire. For 36 years, the House of Representatives has been a better place because of Chairman DeFazio's leadership and insight. This institution will miss him, and I will miss his friendship. Mr. DeFazio, thank you for your leadership, your mentorship, and your service to our country. And Mr. Gibbs, I want to thank you for your partnership and expertise as we work through this year's bipartisan Coast Guard reauthorization. I appreciated the bipartisan collaboration that we developed to do our subcommittee's work, and I appreciate the friendship we developed along the way. Thank you for your 10 years of service to our country as well. Today also marks 81 years since the attack on Pearl Harbor that led our nation to declare war within a day. To all of our veterans and active military families, thank you for your sacrifice and service to our country. Global peace is always tenuous. Today we will hear testimony from 5 witnesses who are experts on the Arctic, a region where security and geopolitics are both at play. Today we have experts before us to focus on the national security issues that are on the top of our minds, while others will enlighten us on the Coast Guard's leadership on maritime safety and environmental stewardship. Nearly 10 years ago, the Coast Guard published its first strategic plan for the Arctic region. The service updated this plan in 2019 to reflect its coordination with the White House, Department of Defense, and the Department of State, which showed a new level of interest in the status of the United States as an Arctic nation. With Russia's recent aggression towards Ukraine, the geopolitical significance of the Arctic is even more pronounced. Although the Coast Guard's security missions are critical, the service continuously executes numerous other critical missions. The Coast Guard is responsible for maritime safety, that is, search and rescue, and aiding mariners in safe navigation by breaking ice, marking channels, and communicating real-time weather hazards. The Coast Guard must also enforce environmental laws in the Arctic. This will become more and more important as melting sea ice means more shipping traffic, more oil pollution, and migrating commercial fish stocks. Coast Guard partnerships with Alaskans and indigenous peoples, with private corporations, the state of Alaska, and other federal agencies and countries have met a gold standard in the last 10 years. Coordination and cooperation are not optional at the North Pole. To help us appreciate the importance of all, the Coast Guard's Arctic missions, Admiral Gautier will be joined on a panel by the Honorable Michael Sfraga, the presidentially appointed chair of the U.S. Arctic Research Commission, and Mr. Andrew Van Ah, director of the Physical Infrastructure Team at the Government Accountability Office. The USARC is working hard to draw attention to the critical gap between the collection of data in the Arctic, weather, sea state, coastal mapping, and the Coast Guard's ability to use this information in its everyday operations. Similarly, the GAO has completed a number of studies in recent years that measure the success of and gaps in the Coast Guard's Arctic operations. Today's second panel will feature an Arctic strategic defense expert, Dr. Rebecca Pincus, director of the Polar Institute, and Dr. Martha Grabowski, a professor at Le Moyne College and a past chair of the Marine Board in the National Academies of Science. The Coast Guard has proven to be a nimble and resourceful leader for the U.S. in the Arctic. It can only fully implement its strategic plan if we fully grasp the form and severity of the challenges coasties face, operating in such a harsh, remote part of the world. The Coast Guard plays a multidimensional leadership role in the Arctic. Fortunately, we have 5 witnesses before us with multidimensional expertise. Let's begin. First, I'd like to recognize Chairman DeFazio.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the kind words, and thank you for holding